Okay. All right. Welcome, everybody. Today, we're going to talk about appraisals. So a few weeks back, we were talking about getting your offer accepted. And then we talked about how to talk to the listing agent, all that good stuff, right? Well, now we're in escrow. So a couple of weeks back, we talked about the home inspection. And today, we're going to talk about the next hurdle, appraisals. So with regard to appraisals, if you're new to the business, I'm going to just get you up to speed with things you should do to make your appraisal process smooth, to make your appraiser happy with you. I actually did a video about a year ago, and I posted it. It's not on my page. However, I stole from that, and also the sound on it is not very good, so I'm not going to play it here. Instead, I did listen to it. I listened to my own video, my own tips, and here they come. Number one is come prepared with comparables. You pretend that it's the first time that you were trying to figure out what the price is. And if you're worried about what the value is going to come in at, look for yourself as if you were that appraiser. Remember, they want solds first, pending second, and these days, they will look at actives. They cannot give it the majority of the weight, but they can give it some significance or some bearing on the final value. Number two, give the appraiser a flyer. Some type, if you had a flyer made, and obviously what is on that flyer, your upgrades, right? So it may say on that flyer that it has newer windows, or that the water heater was replaced. It'll have the square footage, lot size, things like that. So some of the amenities will be on that flyer. So the appraiser always takes that and says, "Oh, thank you for that." So that's a good thing. Again, as I said, with regard to the flyer, point out the amenities. The next thing is be friendly and helpful. Answer the appraiser's questions. Don't be combative. You want them to feel like you're on the same team with that appraiser, right? So don't argue with them is the bottom line on that, okay? Okay, this is an interesting one. Get to the appointment 15 minutes early. Okay, I have made appraisers out to not be human, to be more like a robot. I know that's not very nice, but many appraisers are very timely. They're very exact, and they feel good about things in life, that they're always, early, that they're always early. So if you get there 15 minutes early and they're there as well, that's extra bonus points for you, right? So it means that they can get out of there faster and move on to their other appointment or whatever they're going to do. What else? When you get there, if you get there early, get in the house, turn on the lights, open up the blinds and the curtains. Again, it's almost like he or she is a buyer. You want them to think the house is very impressive, okay? And the last thing is make sure the property has smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors, and water heater strapping. If there's any other health and safeties, like there's a broken glass or chipped paint, if you can have those things done ahead of time, the appraiser will be very happy with you. And why is it important to get especially the carbon monoxide and smoke detectors done ahead of time? The reason is that way they don't have to come back. Even though they make a little extra money, they are annoyed that they have to come back. So, okay. Before we move on to the situations, I want to set the scene for the different types of appraisers. I decided to go this route. So I have 4 types. There's really 3 types, but I'm going to go with 4. First type of appraiser we all want. It's the friendly as can be appraiser. This type of appraiser wants your input. They welcome your feedback. They welcome your comparables with open arms. They try to help you. and they understand your point of view. They understand that you're in the hot seat if they don't appraise the property for what you're in escrow for. And so they have a sympathetic tone to how they deal with this. Okay. I'm not going to give percentages of the different types. I'll throw these out there and then we can discuss in a second. The second type is the know-it-all appraiser. Not to be confused with the fourth one that I will say in a second. These are the almighty, all-knowing appraisers, usually older, sorry to say that. They act like they've seen it all. They have that type of an attitude. And really, I'm not going to say that they don't welcome your input, but they know more than you. And they may not say that, but they'll make you feel like that. And if you get one of those, I would say the best way to handle it is make them feel like they do know more, but you wanted to give them some input. That would be my advice there. The third one is the poker player. This type of appraiser walks in, and when you're done, you don't know if they're happy about life. You don't know if they're content with the appraisal they just did. You have no clue if they're going to bring in the appraisal or not. They are polite, but not really friendly, just polite and proper. There you go. That's the poker player. And finally, I was going to say a bad word, so I'll be nicer and say the jerk appraiser. They don't want your input. They are blatant about it, almost to the point of, I'm sorry, I can't take those comparables from you. They act like that. Yeah, they really want one thing. Open the door for them, shut your mouth, and let me do my job. That's that kind. Okay, and so I said with that, the know-it-all, I said don't confuse the know-it-all appraiser with the jerk appraiser. It could be misjudged, but there is a slight difference. Okay, so maybe none of that even matters. Maybe none of that matters, but there you go. Comments on the types, percentage-wise. What would you say the majority are if you had to give a breakdown? Anyone, welcome.
I mean, most of them are friendly for me. I did have one when I left the comparables and the trends and what's going on with the area and all of that stuff in a nice, pretty, colorful packet. They had a post-it on there that said, "Don't tell me how to do my job."
Oh.
So which one would you say that one? I would say that's the a-hole one.
Yeah. Oh. I'm almost going to say it's 30% are 20 to 30 are friendly as can be. Another, I don't know. I was almost going to say 25, 25, 25, 25. I don't know. But anyway, somewhere in that range. But you see all types, I guess, is the biggest thing. All right. So then situational, before we get to Andy's big topic, situational. So if it doesn't come in, what do you as a listing agent need? Either side, we'll talk both sides for a second, but you as a listing agent, if it doesn't come in, you have a house that you sold for $750 and it appraises for $725. What are the choices? I always explain that to everybody. What are the choices? Your choices are the buyer, you come down to their appraisal value. Second option is the seller says no, and the buyer accepts that and pays the difference and pays the $750. And the third one is somewhere in between. And the fourth one is, of course, it cancels. So it is our job as agents to help both sides come together. And so this whole topic right now is not about the topic where we removed our appraisal contingency or anything like that. We're not going there quite yet. We will. So My advice to this is set it up with whoever you represent. So if you represent the seller, at least put the writing on the wall. Wow, we did get a lot of offers, or, it sold pretty quickly and we did get a great price. But as you remember, when I first talked to you, even though the house is amazing, the comparables aren't quite there. So we are going to have the challenge of the appraisal coming in. And I hope that the buyer will be willing to pay the difference, but just want you to understand it may not happen. So, does anybody else preface it, or at least set up each side? Do you think it's a good idea to do that?
Gosh, I even start that conversation when we put the house on the market and we talk about what's happening around it. So I set up the sellers just to know that hurdle is going to come up. How we get over it is the answer. And sometimes we're all pleasantly surprised. And I think it turns into everybody kind of running around with their fingers crossed with that kind of a thought. Hope we get there, instead of it being an angry situation.
Right. And
I usually say something like, we would have to be the pioneer to get that really high appraisal value. That's not necessarily going to happen depending on the appraiser, depending on, I tell them, depending on what has closed since we first put our house on the market, there's different variables involved. So I try to at least make it sound like we're strong, we've done this, but everybody else may not have caught up to where we are.
That's a good one. And that brings up a point is, we are not in a vacuum. Your little situation, your listing, whatever the case is, there's other variables, there's the market. And so that's another thing. You have to remember the market you're in, right? I know in 2020, it's a seller's market, things like that. But if it was the other way, sometimes you have to be making both sides aware of, the temperature in the room. Okay.
This year, my explanation to my clients has become putting a price on the house is like an art project, and finding the buyers that are willing to, we love it, we're going to pay for it, this is what we want to do, we're going to beat out everybody else. But that art project is graded by a math geek who wants to see it as data, and how does it work? And so we're all in a feel good, happy place, but the math people may not think it jives. That's my new explanation.
That is good. You got the math teacher comes in with the clipboard.
I recently had a property that was on the market for $665, and I let the buyer, who was also the agent, know off the bat that my clients were very firm on the price and that they've been through 3 failed escrows before. So I set it up like, we don't care, we want what we priced it at, no matter what. But when it appraised at $655.
It appraised
At $655.
655.
10,000 less.
Yeah, and then the buyer said he couldn't go higher because the loan wouldn't approve him for that, for $665. So then I said, well, I'll have to talk to my seller because he doesn't care. He's going to want the difference.
Okay.
But a part of my seller was he didn't care. He wanted difference and didn't care if he had to put the house on the market again because this was his 4th property that he didn't, really mind. But also he knew on the other side of the stick that if worst came to worst, he didn't mind. He was going to go down to the appraisal amount. But he didn't want me to quickly say anything yet. We kind of let the agent see because it was a contingent sale. So if his property didn't sell, everything would fall through. Right. So we ended up closing for the appraised amount.
They came down then.
Yeah, we came down.
Okay. And so situation here, there's a few things there. One is it's sometimes you can get a seller to come down because they are in a pressure situation where they want to get that next house that they're going to buy. So they're willing to negotiate, because if they don't make this work, they may not get the house that they want to buy. So that's a big part.
But the negotiation factor really helped because it wasn't their house. It was like a father-in-law home. So they didn't care if they needed to put it back on the market. But because of the whole process, they didn't want to go through it again. So they just said, it's okay. You know, we're going to give it to him for the appraised amount. So it was a good experience.
Right. And so I'm going to use what you said, though, about the buyer not having the money for the difference to talk about, as a listing agent, when you do get offers, you need to be aware of the buyer's situation before you accept an offer these days.
Yep.
So what I mean by that is, if you know that they're going $20,000, $30,000 above the list price, and you know in your heart of hearts it may not appraise, maybe 10 to 20,000 under what they're offering. And let's say there is not an appraisal. Let's say there is an appraisal contingency in place. Excuse me, that they remove the appraisal contingency. You have to make sure that they have the money for the difference. So you may have heard me say the other day, I have a listing in Compton, a few. And so I'm on the market for $435, the house on Santa Fe. And I got 8 offers, and they range from $445 to $460. But the 460 doesn't have money. In fact, on top of it, they're Cal HFA, and they're going to put they're going to end up only needing 0.5% down. And they sent me the bank statement, and they really don't have the money for the difference. Where another one did $455, a little bit less, but still a really good offer, $20,000 above our asking price. And they removed the appraisal contingency upon my counter offer. They accepted my counter, and they've got $40,000 in the bank. You know, they're FHA, they're doing 3.5, but they have the difference. So that is important. I want to say one last thing about some of the analogies, and Pam gave the best one there with the art project and the math teacher grading the art project. I do like to explain to the buyer. So now let's talk about the buyer. To a buyer, to explain why are they going to pay more than what it may be worth. To explain, well, have you noticed the prices have been going up for the last few years? How do you think that happens? It happens because someone pays more and eventually it goes up. And so I use the analogy of like Jenga or stacking things on top of each other. And use that with the buyer to explain that to them. So
you can also, in addition to that, just to have for the people who need to see the data, who may not just want to go off the word of the realtor, on the MLS, you can print out the last solds, and almost all of them, at least in my areas that I'm servicing, the arrow is showing that they've all gone up. So the beginning price was, whatever, 600, and it ended at 670. So if you can show them a whole list of these homes that have all gone up above asking, then it kind of like kills that whole argument before it can happen.
Perfect. Yeah. So you're looking at the solds, and I had one last week. I didn't get it in Pico Rivera, but I show them that it was listed for 600 and sold for 625, listed for 630, sold for 655. That's what you're saying. Yeah.
And it's just a single line display that shows all of them and with all those arrows going up. So you present that to them when you first start talking to them, after you've got them in.
Yes.
Get them pre-approved, and then, talk to them about it. So
that's good. That's a good one. Yeah, because there may not be comparables. I mean, you may be showing them the best, and even the best is not going to get it. So they have to understand that they're going to have to outdo, just like all those other houses did.
Yeah, because if they are listening to parents who bought in 1989, or listening to other people and hearing these other things, and we've got these bad reputations of just wanting the commission, you telling them you want them to go higher, they're gonna question that. Like, is it because they want more money for their commission? So just show them the data, because the data is the data.
Yes.
And then sometimes when buyers have gotten to the place, when they lose their first offer, they lose their second offer, the third time they relax a little bit and think, all right, let's shoot a little higher. And what else can we do that makes mine look better? So sometimes it's just that personal experience.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's it. And it actually, they're not relaxing about it. In fact, they're tensing up, they're rolling up their sleeves. If this is hunting, they started with a little gun and they went in the back and got the rifle. So they're ready. They're gonna get it. Yeah. And they get more and more aggressive every time they lose. So, yep, that's right. Okay. So now let's get to the big one of the day. These days we're doing no appraisal contingency. So I'm just going to say it just in case you don't know what that means. If you do no appraisal contingency, or you're given a counter offer by a listing agent and it says no appraisal contingency, it means if you're in escrow for $650 and it appraises for $630, you, the buyer, are going to pay the $20,000 difference. And it means if you are not willing to do that, even though you agreed to do that with the no appraisal contingency, it would mean, in theory, you will lose your deposit. Fair enough explanation? That good? Okay. So you're seeing no appraisal contingency, and then sometimes you're seeing a shortened contingency period on other items such as the loan or the inspection. Even as Andy said, no loan contingency, especially if they're really well qualified. So let's use my scenario, but let's make it put a little more meat on it. $650, you're in escrow and it appraises for $620. It's a $30,000 difference. I'll let Andy answer then. What is one way, unfortunately, that a buyer is going, or a buyer's agent is going to try and use to get the price down?
What do you mean use to get the price down?
Well, on the surface, they're not supposed to. They're supposed to buy it. But what's
You're
the
saying
one?
after the no appraisal contingency has been on the offer?
It's in the offer. You're in escrow.
Yeah.
Doesn't appraise, and we're putting this out there so we're all aware as agents what other agents may do.
Yeah, not Andy. I haven't done this.
Got it. But we have to say it because it happens. It happens.
Yeah, I was
They're
telling Michael.
They're using what contingency to either wiggle out or reduce the price?
Inspection.
Yep, they're using the inspection contingency to hurry up, get the appraiser in there and find out whether or not it appraises. Let's say it doesn't, then they're using that time frame and the inspection contingency to bail out the offer.
Right. And so, yes, as Carmen said, repairs. So they're going to use the idea that, hey, the house needs a new roof, or the water heater is, needs to be replaced, or the electrical is all messed up and we need a new panel. And they're going to add that up and say, you need to come down by X number of dollars, not mentioning the appraisal. So is that okay to do?
And they usually cite, at least this people that I was talking to, they cite item 14 as the catch-all. Like, we don't have to say anything. We're just citing item 14 that we can just bail out of this during that contingency time frame without any explanation.
Yeah, which is your inspection / due diligence period. Okay. And yeah, it comes down to knowing your buyer, explaining to your buyer what it means, explaining if we're in a pinch that you're going to have to pay the difference. And again, as we said, if they've been through 2, 3, 4, 5 offers and they didn't get it, they do understand how it's going to work. So but it does make it challenging. And as a listing agent, it's happened to me. And so one way will say, hey, it did come in less. And I know we had no appraisal contingency, but the combination of the lower appraisal and the fact that the inspection came in, unfortunately, we need a price reduction. So it happens. So I guess one thing would be as a listing agent or a buyer's agent, be aware of the condition of the property also, so that whether that's going to be something that will be used against you later, even in a no appraisal. So, and it's all situational. Yeah. If they know, if they know that person maybe has a house they're buying right now, that's an extra wrinkle on things where they know the seller is going to feel some pressure, fair or not fair, but that does happen. So the biggest thing, I guess, with that is make your buyer aware that what it means to do no appraisal contingency, right? And, try to get yourself past it, because you don't want to have it not appraise, fall out, go find another house, do it again, right? It took so much energy to get to that point, to get an acceptance. You do want to work it out, but you do need to prep the buyer for what's to come. So
what are your thoughts and Pam's thoughts on people say, well, we'll do no appraisal contingency because you can't get the loan without the appraisal? I've heard people say that, and I thought, yeah, but it's still, if it's based upon the appraisal, because I had someone counter, they said they countered basically that as long as it's not regarding the value with regard to the loan contingency, like that's how they went around that one.
Yeah, I mean, that's wrong.
Right.
I'm trying to be kind with my words.
I think there's a lot of, there's going to be a lot of creativeness for what they say or how they present it. Pardon me. And yet, bottom line is kind of what you've just explained, Michael. In the end, even if, we still need the price reduction, we can't make it happen. They are responsible for bringing in their money. So as much as we want to crush them because it's by contract, if they don't perform, we still end up with our sellers, being drug out and no closed escrow. So, this conversation came up the other day, and it's been rolling in my head as a listing agent, what am I going to do? Because the buyer's agents are coming up with all these cockeyed things trying to win their offer to be selected. I think I'm going to go the direction of non-refundable deposits, something significant enough that's going to kill, at least if you want to play the game and you want the seller, you want to tie up their time, we want some cash. So I think I'm going to go with some non-refundable deposits. And I'm going to go super short inspection times, because I have one that's in escrow. We're at 24 days and they still haven't even seen the appraiser. So.
Uh-oh.
We lost you, Pam.
Yeah, she's on Florence. Shoot.
But you can't also, you can't go in asking for too much, because the seller can say,
not only are we drug out in a.
Uh-oh, Pam's trying.
And sorry.
Yeah, the reception got really bad for the last 30 seconds. We didn't hear it, Pam.
Oh,
there you are.
Oh, that's okay. I'm sorry, my phone froze. Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah.
It's telling me it didn't want to listen to my philosophy.
Well, what did you say again? Say it one more time.
I think I'm going to go
shorter time frames,
non-refundable deposit
and non-refundable,
and shorter time frames, because I have an appraisal right now. I haven't even seen the appraiser. It's been 24 days. So my seller has already lost almost a month in this process, so that if it doesn't appraise and we get into this tango, my seller's the one that's lost a bunch. Yes. And the buyer can cruise on and be like, peace out. I'm going to go buy something else. So my wheels are turning, but I think that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah. Karen, you were going to say something?
I really think if you lay out from the beginning, like, you know, if you're what your seller expects when on that first phone call when another agent is introducing themselves with an offer, it really clears things up immediately. Like for example, the property that I was just talking about, it had probably over $10,000 in repairs. And I let him know straight off the bat, hey, you know, and it even had a cedar elevator for a handicapped person. And my seller didn't have to touch absolutely anything. So you really have to filter out in the beginning what you expect from your seller, especially if you're a listing agent. You need to know the cons and the pros like immediately, so you know how to play the game. Or I like to consider it as a tango, a dance. It's
That's
just
true.
a little dance.
Yeah. The only thing I worry about is the non-refundable deposit. Who will go along with that, Pam? That's the only thing.
Well, maybe a portion.
Okay.
Well, yeah, it was not going to be like, you know, put in 10,000 and we're going to leave it there, but I want a little something because, and if the buyers have missed out 4 or 5 other times and they really want to play this game, put some money in it and then don't mess with it as much. Maybe don't take your appraisal out. Most sellers are realistic. They're not jerks, but they're going through they're in the market just like the buyers. But at the same time, what we're talking about with removing loan contingencies, removing appraisal contingencies, and then sticking it to an inspection and trying to jump out at 14A is a stick it to the seller move. That's all in the favor of the buyer, in my opinion. So, you know, everybody, like the tango or whatever you want to say, we're all in it together. But, you know, if the buyer wants to play, then they need to get the seller in there.
Right.
I gotta go.
The shorter inspection contingency will scare them a little bit, I think. What do you think, Michael?
Yeah, it does. That's why
Yeah.
the non-refundable idea or the shorter escrow period, the shorter contingency period will scare them. But if there is tons of offers and they know it, the more offers there are or the higher the demand for that house, the higher probability that you can get away with doing that. You know, what Pam said. So if it's hot enough, you can get away with more. Right.
But like you said, definitely check those reserves, the proof of funds. If you see the 401ks, make sure that it's an accessible retirement plan, because not all retirement plans are accessible. So that's something to check with their lenders when you accept an offer based on those type of funds.
Yes, for sure. For sure. So, okay. Any questions?
Has anybody been experiencing lack of communication via email with buyers?
Yeah, I'm going through that right now, but it's turned into the apple pie Andi that they once knew. She's gone.
What was the question, Karen?
Has anyone experienced buyers' lack of communication, like buyer agents just not communicating, not emailing you back? Almost like you have to have a notice to perform.
I did. We sent one out yesterday. We sent out a notice to perform yesterday. And it's sometimes you have to do that, but you also have to prepare the seller that it may go sideways. So
yeah,
you have to make sure they're ready for that as well. But if you have to, I would suggest going to the broker, letting them know, hey, you know what, I'm not sure if something's happened. You know, there's so much going on these days with coronavirus. I have no idea what's happened. So I'm going to go ahead and CC the broker on this.
Yeah.
You see my typewriter, you see my keyboard, excuse me, you see my keyboard? You want to do this as fast as you can, the D button, delete. You want to give them that notice as fast as possible. Get their ass out of escrow. If they're going to act like that, yeah, they're acting that way because they're dodging you for a reason.
Yeah.
So,
and it's even worse when it's both the lender and the agent.
I mean, I have one right now. And of course, when they finally resurface, guess why? Because, the buyer didn't file their tax return right, and this was wrong, and they're trying to get a P&L and all that.
Bye.
So, yeah, okay. I do need to address Eddie's question. It made me laugh, Eddie. Eddie's question was, how do you address ghost listing agents? Woo.
Can I offer a
Wait,
suggestion?
is the broker thing not something to do if you cannot get in touch with someone? Because when they know that the broker's involved, they tend to be a little bit more on
Yes.
it. If you've been trying to reach them by text, email, phone calls, and in my subject line, I put resend in caps and the subject line, resend
Yes.
3.
Second
So-
request, third request.
Yeah, so now it's like, okay, we're gonna bypass you because Rona got you in bed. So I'm gonna go to the broker or somebody who can help if they're not responding. It's not like I haven't given them a chance.
Okay, my suggestion is go completely old school, because the question actually, as it was asked, was if they're not responding to email, get
But
on
it
the
was-
phone. Call every 15 minutes from your phone, take up your friend's phone, call from another thing, call someone else on the thing, get on a website, see who else you can find, shake the tree. Just because they know your number and they hit, cancel or not answer, you got to get on the phone and call them too. You might have to go wherever they are too, but just because they're not responding to email, that's easy to skip. They don't want to.
Karen said, knock on the door of the seller. When all else has failed, after you've attempted everything, go there. That will be our last resort.
Very last.
Yeah, it is an idea. It is an idea. Okay, so I will say one thing. You all know me. I'm very good with text. Okay, so I have an agent that I was trying to get a hold of, and I'm always saying that this agent never responds. Well, I was just trying the wrong mode.
Phone number.
Yeah, this person only responds to email. You email that person, they respond right away. And I was like, wow, I wish I would have known this before.
But is it them, or was it their secretary or their assistant, or?
It was their assistant.
Because they're sitting in front of a computer. I actually had an agent yesterday tell me, no, can't you send it to my assistant and not me? I'm out in the field all day. As I was looking at him face to face in Northridge, I'm like, am I not in the field too?
Wow.
So there's just some conception or misconception of what people do. So maybe they figured it was their assistant's job to answer the email.
I
I
guess.
do all
But you-
3, email, phone call, text, and that way there's really no excuse. Because then they'll put it off on the TC. The TC will say, well, I haven't been able to get to the listing agent yet, or they haven't responded. So I do both of them.
Yes, all of them. So I'm going to give Eddie though the last thing. The last statement on this is, it's because they may have their own offer, or they've got 25 offers, and that's why they got their own offer, or they got so many offers. Quite frankly, Eddie, they don't need you. That is wrong, 100% wrong.
They said we're in escrow
Oh my
though.
God. All right, broker, go
Broker.
Andy's route, or TC, Eddie, the TC. I don't know. So
The broker's the last resort. I mean, when I say it's bad, we're 4 days out of contract bad.
oh,
Yeah, only to find out it's because the buyer, she's actually married, and she told the lender she's married, but they need an interspousal blah, blah, blah. And it turns out he's in a conservatorship because he's very ill. So it's become super convoluted. But all they had to do was explain to us, like just talk, communicate. So it's bad. I had to do the notice to perform because this is how bad it is.
yeah. And yeah, when I said ask the TC, I have one right now where they really just said straight out, that's not my job to work on, to do that stuff. That's my TC, which is wrong. But
I get that all the time. I get that all the time, stuff like that.
yeah.
I hear that all the time too.
Yes.
Just hit them both up, and then that way there's no excuse.
Yeah.
And,
All right.
and text them with the follow-up. Hey, I just sent you both an email, blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
I'll just CC everybody. Yeah, I'm the broker.
Yes. 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 So, okay. We're all good. We got appraisals covered. Okay. All right.
Also, hey, Bergelis, what do you think about agents using appraisals in their marketing presentations when they're trying to get like a listing or represent a buyer and say that they have a way with preparing packets or appraisers and that's their way of building a relationship. And I personally think that's just wrong. What is your take on that?
You think it's wrong?
Well, kind of, because I feel like you shouldn't really be doing an appraiser's job, and you should have comparables as backup in your back pocket. And then if they do ask, then you have it ready.
Okay. I mean, I do say in my listing appointment, I do say that I try to work with appraisers.
Okay,
I think that's a good thing to do. And then also when I'm going over the market analysis, when I'm speaking to the seller about the market analysis, I do say, I'm an agent and these are the comparables, but now let's look at it from the appraiser's point of view in terms of trying to determine the best price that we should list this house at. And or we've used the word expectations today a lot.
Yeah.
I use the word appraiser and how I discuss things with appraiser and how an appraiser may have a different point of view to set their expectations, put some expectations in check.
Yeah.
So.
I wouldn't say so much wrong, I'd say misleading a little.
Well, I mean, it's misleading to say that, hey, I got appraisers that'll make it happen 100%.
Yeah.
Or it's misleading to say that, oh, I know what to say, so every appraisal will come in just fine. Obviously that's misleading and wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Do we have anything, and I think I was asking Pam this, I think. Do we have anything that gives you just an idea of how they make their adjustments, like just a cheat sheet that says like for,
Yes.
I don't know,
Bedroom
garage
count.
or a pool, like whatever, like some of that information, just so that helps us.
I like to use an Excel sheet and do my own.
Right. But to answer the question though, what she's asking is like, so how much? So yeah, I mean, I do it all the time with
So you're going to create the sheet for us, Michael? Thank you.
I can actually create the sheet. Yes.
Woohoo!
Yes. So,
estimated time of arrival? I know I have to do this because you get so busy.
You'll have it by noon. Seriously, I'll text you a few. I mean, like, for example, second bedroom versus a third bedroom on a house that's in the 500 range is probably going to be around 15,000. 3 versus a 4 is going to be about in that range, 10 to 15,000. Bathroom, about 5,000 for every bathroom.
Yeah, that'll be very helpful.
Okay, garage, 10,000. Between a 1 and a 2 car, it's about 10. 0 versus a 2-car garage. No garage is probably about 20,000. Square footage, if it's in Downey, it's about, let's say, Pam may disagree, but somewhere in the $70 to $100 per square foot range. I usually use around 80 to 100. Lot size is about $4 to $5 per square foot difference. Things like that. Pool.
Yeah, upgrades, like that would be very helpful so that when we're talking to them, say, this is not a hard number. This is just something that we kind of use as a scale.
Yeah, and I do use the appraiser, like the fictitious character or real character of an appraiser when I'm going over a listing and going over the comparables with a seller. I play the appraiser against me, like this is what an appraiser is going to do, even though it costs you $30,000 to redo the windows, they're probably only going to give you $8,000 to $10,000 for the windows. Yeah. The kitchen, you spent $50,000, they're probably going to give you $10,000 to $20,000. You redid your backyard. you spent $150,000 on the new pool, the patio, the hardscape, the speakers, all of that, the appraiser is going to give you about $30,000. I mean, you know,
Can you
20.
imagine if the appraiser appraised everything?
Right. Well, that's all real. I mean,
That's
all
real. So, yeah, so we want that, Michael. Thank
Okay.
you.
And it didn't come, that's why I didn't make it up though. This is from a couple different appraisers that I'm always picking their brain. So.
So we're picking yours. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Well, have
Thank
a
you,
good day.
Michael.
You're welcome, Eddie. I'll text you actually about your appraisal problem.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Pam. Thank you, Andy. And thank you, everybody.
All right, thanks so
Thank
much.
you.
Good class.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.